Your unlimited kindness is not making you a good person, it's making you a useless person. And the proof is in the emptiness of your own achievements, while you're busy being everyone's emotional support system. Who's supporting your goals? While you're solving everyone else's problems, who's solving yours? While you're making everyone else's life easier, who's making yours easier? The answer is nobody, because you've trained the world to see you as a giver, not a receiver. You've become so focused on being helpful that you've forgotten how to be powerful. And power is what creates real change in the world, not niceness. Right now, as you sit here listening to these words, there are 73% of working professionals who feel completely drained by the end of each day. Not because they worked too hard on their goals, not because they pushed themselves toward greatness, but because they gave their energy away to people who didn't deserve it. They said yes when they meant no. They smiled when they wanted to scream. They helped others climb mountains while their own dreams collected dust. This is the kindness trap. And chances are you're caught in it right now. You've been told your whole life that being kind is a virtue. Your parents praised you for sharing your toys. Your teachers rewarded you for helping classmates. Society painted a picture where nice people finish first, where kindness opens doors, where being good to everyone guarantees a good life in return. But here's what nobody told you. Unlimited kindness is not a strength. It's a weakness that others will exploit until you have nothing left to give. Let me share something that might shock you. The most successful people in the world are not the kindest people in the world. They're the most strategic. They understand something that you're about to learn. There's a massive difference between being a good person and being a doormat. When you try to be kind to everyone, you become useful to no one. When you spread your energy thin across every person who asks for your time, you dilute your power until you become invisible in your own life. You become the person everyone calls when they need something, but nobody thinks of when opportunities arise. Think about Maria, a talented marketing manager who spent her days solving everyone else's problems. She stayed late to help colleagues with their projects. She covered shifts for people who called in sick. She listened to every sob story and said yes to every request. Maria believed she was building relationships and creating goodwill, but when promotion time came, Maria was passed over. Why? Because her boss saw her as someone who couldn't prioritize, someone who lacked the judgment to focus on what truly mattered. Her kindness had become her career ceiling. The cruel irony is that when you're kind to everyone, you're actually being cruel to yourself. You're stealing time from your family to help strangers. You're sacrificing your goals to fund other people's dreams. You're trading your peace of mind for temporary approval from people who will forget your kindness the moment they get what they want. This happens because most people confuse kindness with people-pleasing. True kindness comes from a place of strength and choice. People-pleasing comes from fear and desperation. When you're kind because you want to help, that's beautiful. When you're kind because you're afraid of conflict, criticism, or rejection, that's self-destruction. Your brain has been programmed to seek approval since childhood. Every time you pleased someone, you got a hit of dopamine. Every time you disappointed someone, you felt the sting of rejection. So you learned to avoid that pain by saying yes to everything and everyone. But here's what your brain doesn't understand. Not everyone deserves your kindness. Not every request deserves your attention. Not every person who asks for your help has earned the right to your time and energy. The people who demand your kindness the most are often the ones who give the least in return. They're emotional vampires who feed on your generosity while contributing nothing to your life. They take your best hours, your creative energy, your mental bandwidth, and they give you nothing but the temporary satisfaction of being needed. Meanwhile, The people who truly matter, your family, your real friends, your mentors, your team members who actually support your goals, they get the leftovers of your energy. They get the tired, stressed, overwhelmed version of you because you've already given your best to people who don't even know your last name. This is why successful people seem cold to those who don't understand success. They're not cold, they're selective. They've learned that their time and energy are their most precious resources, and they guard them like a treasure. They understand that saying no to good things creates space for great things. When you're kind to everyone, you create a life of mediocrity. You become the person who's always busy but never productive. Always helping but never helped. Always giving but never receiving. You become a supporting character in everyone else's story, while your own story remains unwritten. The psychological cost of this behavior is enormous. You lose yourself in the process of trying to please everyone. You stop knowing what you want because you're so focused on what others want. You develop anxiety because you're constantly worried about disappointing someone. You feel resentful because your generosity isn't reciprocated. But you can't stop because you don't know how to say no. Your relationships suffer because people lose respect for someone who has no boundaries. They don't value what's freely given. They take advantage of your kindness because you've taught them that your time has no value. You've trained them to see you as a resource to be used, not a person to be respected. This is not the life you were meant to live. You were not born to be a servant to everyone else's needs. You were born to create value, to build something meaningful, to leave a mark on this world that matters. But you can't do that when you're exhausted from carrying everyone else's burdens. The kindness trap is real, and it's keeping you small, but recognizing it is the first step toward breaking free. Understanding that your kindness should be a gift, not a given, is the beginning of your transformation from a people pleaser to a person of impact. Now that you understand the trap, let's talk about why you fell into it in the first place. Your brain is wired to seek connection and avoid rejection. This made perfect sense when humans lived in small tribes where being cast out meant death. But in today's world, this ancient programming is sabotaging your success. Every time someone asks you for something, your brain sends an alarm signal. It whispers, if you say no, they might not like you if they don't like you. You'll be alone if you're alone. You'll die. This is why saying no feels like you're fighting for your life. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between rejecting a coworker's request and being rejected by your tribe. But here's what your brain doesn't realize. In the modern world, being liked by everyone is impossible and unnecessary. There are billions of people on this planet. You don't need all of them to approve of you. You need a select few to respect you. The people who cross your boundaries aren't doing it by accident. They're doing it because you've taught them that your boundaries don't exist when you say yes to everything. You're sending a message that your time has no value, that your priorities can be interrupted, that your needs come last. Let me tell you about Jennifer, a software developer who worked at a tech company. Jennifer was brilliant, but she had one fatal flaw. She couldn't say no. When teammates asked her to fix their code, she did it. When her manager asked her to work weekends, she agreed. When clients called directly with urgent requests, she dropped everything to help them. Jennifer thought she was being helpful. She thought she was building relationships. She thought she was proving her worth. But what actually happened was that people began to see her as a problem solver, not a leader. They valued her skills, not her judgment. They saw her as someone who executed other people's visions, not someone who could create her own. The neuroscience behind this is fascinating. When you say no, Your brain releases stress hormones because it perceives rejection as a threat. But when you say yes to things you don't want to do, your brain releases different stress hormones because it perceives loss of control as a threat. Either way, you're stressed. The difference is that one stress leads to respect and the other leads to resentment. Here's a truth that might hurt. People don't respect what they can easily get. They respect what they have to earn. When you give your time and energy freely to everyone, you make it worthless. When you're selective about who gets access to you, you make yourself valuable. This is why children test boundaries. They're not trying to be difficult. They're trying to understand the rules of the world. When you don't enforce boundaries, you teach them that rules don't matter. When you consistently enforce boundaries, you teach them that actions have consequences. Adults do the same thing. They test your boundaries to see if you'll enforce them. When you don't, they learn that your boundaries are suggestions, not requirements. They learn that they can push harder next time. They learn that you don't respect yourself enough to protect your own interests. The ripple effect of weak boundaries extends far beyond individual relationships. When you don't protect your time at work, you create a culture where everyone is expected to be available 24/7. When you don't protect your energy at home, you teach your family that your well-being doesn't matter. When you don't protect your resources, you enable others to be irresponsible with their own. Your lack of boundaries doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everyone around you. It creates an environment where taking advantage of others is normalized. It teaches people that they don't need to be self-reliant because someone else will always rescue them. It prevents others from developing the strength and skills they need to solve their own problems. But the most damaging effect of weak boundaries is what it does to your own psyche. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon yourself. You send a message to your subconscious that other people's needs are more important than your own. You train your brain to believe that you don't deserve to have your own priorities respected. This creates a cycle of self-betrayal that becomes harder to break with each repetition. You start to lose touch with what you actually want because you're so focused on what others want. You begin to define yourself by how useful you are to others rather than by your own values and goals. The good news is that boundaries are learnable skills. They're not personality traits that you're born with or without. They're habits that you can develop through practice and intention. But first, you need to understand that setting boundaries is not selfish. It's essential for your mental health, your relationships, and your success. Here's something that will change how you think about success forever. The most successful people in any field are not the ones who say yes to everything. They're the ones who say no to almost everything so they can say yes to the right things. Warren Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors, has a simple rule. For every 100 investment opportunities that cross his desk, he says no to 99 of them. He doesn't say no because he's lazy or because he doesn't want to help. He says no because he understands that focus is the ultimate competitive advantage. This principle applies to every area of your life. Your time and energy are finite resources. Every minute you spend on someone else's priorities is a minute you can't spend on your own. Every ounce of energy you give to people who don't contribute to your goals is energy you can't invest in your future. The 80/20 rule reveals something powerful about relationships. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. And 80% of your fulfillment comes from 20% of your relationships. Yet most people spend 80% of their time on the 20% of people who drain their energy and contribute nothing to their growth. Think about your current relationships. Make a mental list of the people who energize you, who support your goals, who celebrate your wins, who challenge you to grow. These are your 20%. Now think about the people who constantly need your help, but never offer help in return, who drain your energy with their problems, but show no interest in your dreams. These are your 80%. Most people have this backwards. They give their best energy to the 80% who take everything and give nothing, while the 20% who could change their lives get whatever's left over. This is why they feel exhausted but unfulfilled, busy but unproductive, surrounded by people but lonely. Successful people flip this equation. They invest their time and energy in the 20% of people who multiply their efforts and amplify their impact. They're polite to everyone, but they're strategic about where they invest their emotional and mental resources. Consider Steve Jobs, who was famously selective about projects, people, and priorities. He said no to hundreds of product ideas so Apple could focus on creating a few revolutionary products. He said no to countless meeting requests so he could spend time with the people who were building the future. His selectivity wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. When you say no to good opportunities, you create space for great ones. When you say no to people who waste your time, you create space for people who value your time. When you say no to requests that don't align with your goals, you create space for activities that move you closer to your dreams. The opportunity cost of being kind to everyone is enormous. Every hour you spend listening to complaints from people who don't want solutions is an hour you can't spend learning new skills. Every dollar you lend to people who won't pay you back is a dollar you can't invest in your future. Every emotional crisis you solve for others is energy you can't use to build your own success. This doesn't mean you become heartless or cruel. It means you become strategic. You help the people who help you. You invest in relationships that are mutually beneficial. You give your energy to people who appreciate it and use it well. The most successful people understand that their kindness is valuable precisely because it's not freely given to everyone. When they choose to help someone, that person knows they've been selected. They know they've earned access to something precious. They respect it more, value it more, and are more likely to reciprocate. So this is the success paradox. The less available you are to everyone, the more valuable you become to everyone. The more selective you are with your kindness, the more impact your kindness has. The more you protect your time and energy, the more time and energy you have to create something meaningful. Now that you understand why change is necessary, let's talk about how to make it happen. Transformation doesn't occur through willpower alone. It requires a systematic approach that rewires your automatic responses and creates new habits. Step one is conducting what I call the energy audit. For the next week, track every interaction you have. Write down who asked for your time, what they wanted, how long it took, and how you felt afterward. This isn't about judging people. It's about gathering data on where your energy actually goes versus where you think it goes. Most people are shocked by what they discover. They realize they're spending 2 hours a day on text messages from people who add no value to their lives. They see that they're saying yes to requests that take minutes to ask but hours to fulfill. They notice that certain people only contact them when they need something, never when they have something to offer. Step two is creating your personal value system. You need to know what matters to you before you can decide what deserves your attention. Write down your top 5 priorities in life. Maybe it's advancing your career, spending time with family, improving your health, building a business, or developing a skill. These become your filter for every decision. When someone asks for your time, you ask yourself, does this request align with my top 5 priorities? If the answer is no, you have your answer. If the answer is yes, you can choose to help from a place of alignment rather than obligation. Step 3 is learning the art of the strategic no. Most people think saying no requires a long explanation or justification. This is wrong. The more you explain your no, the more you invite negotiation. A simple, I can't commit to that right now, is complete, no additional explanation needed. For persistent people, use the broken record technique. Keep repeating the same response. I understand you need help, but I can't commit to that right now. Don't get pulled into arguments or guilt trips. Your no is not a negotiation, it's a decision. Step 4 is implementing the 24-hour rule. When someone makes a request, tell them you need time to check your schedule and you'll get back to them. This serves two purposes. It prevents you from saying yes impulsively, and it signals that your time has value and requires consideration during those 24 hours. Ask yourself 3 questions. Does this align with my priorities? Is this person someone who adds value to my life? Will saying yes to this prevent me from saying yes to something better? If any answer is no, you have your response. Step 5 is preparing for pushback. When you start setting boundaries, people will test them. They'll tell you you've changed. They'll accuse you of being selfish. They'll try to guilt you into returning to your old patterns. This is normal and expected. The people who react most strongly to your boundaries are the ones who are benefiting most from your lack of boundaries. Their reaction tells you everything you need to know about the relationship. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. People who only care about what you can do for them will resist your boundaries. Remember, you're not responsible for managing other people's emotions about your decisions. You're responsible for making decisions that align with your values and goals. Some people will understand this immediately. Others will need time to adjust. A few will never accept it. And that's information you need to make future decisions about those relationships. This system works because it removes emotion from boundary setting and makes it a logical process. You're not saying no to be mean. You're saying no to protect something more important. Let me tell you about David, a 34-year-old project manager who transformed his entire life by learning to be selectively kind 2 years ago. David was drowning. He worked 60-hour weeks, not because his job required it, but because he couldn't say no to anyone. Colleagues dumped their problems on his desk. His boss assigned him to every committee. His neighbors asked him to fix their computers, walk their dogs, and watch their kids. David's marriage was suffering because he came home exhausted every night. His health was declining because he had no time for exercise. His dreams of starting his own consulting business remained just dreams because he had no energy left for his own goals. He was kind to everyone except the person who mattered most, himself. The breaking point came when his wife asked him to skip a neighborhood barbecue to attend their daughter's school play. David realized he had said yes to grilling burgers for people he barely knew, but was about to miss his own child's performance that night. He made a decision that changed everything. David started with the energy audit. He was horrified to discover that he spent 25 hours a week on activities that had nothing to do with his job, his family, or his goals. He was volunteering for every charity event, helping every colleague with their projects, and solving every problem that landed on his desk. He was everyone's solution but his own. Next, he created his personal value system. His top 5 priorities became advancing his career, spending quality time with his family, maintaining his health, building his business, and developing his leadership skills. Everything else became secondary. The transformation wasn't easy. When David started saying no to non-essential requests, people were confused. His colleague Rebecca, who had been dumping her work on him for months, accused him of being selfish. His neighbor Tom, who expected David to fix his fence every weekend, called him unhelpful. His boss, who had relied on David to handle every crisis, questioned his commitment. But something interesting happened. As David became less available for everyone else's problems, people started taking more responsibility for their own solutions. Rebecca learned to manage her own projects. Tom hired a handyman. His boss began distributing emergency tasks among the entire team instead of defaulting to David. More importantly, David's newfound focus transformed his results. With his extra 25 hours per week, he launched his consulting business on evenings and weekends. Within 6 months, he had 3 steady clients. Within a year, he had enough income to negotiate a 4-day work week with his employer. Within 18 months, he was ready to leave his job and run his business full-time. His relationship with his wife improved dramatically. Instead of coming home drained and irritable, David had energy for meaningful conversations. They started taking weekend trips again. They began planning for their future instead of just surviving each day. His daughter noticed the change too. Her father was present during their time together, not distracted by other people's problems. David's health transformed as well, with protected time for exercise. He lost 30 pounds and completed his first marathon with less stress from overcommitment. His sleep improved with better boundaries. His anxiety decreased. He looked and felt 10 years younger. But the most profound change was in how people treated him. Instead of seeing David as a pushover, his colleagues began viewing him as a leader. His focused approach to work impressed his clients. His selective availability made his time more valuable. People started asking for his advice on important decisions, not just his help with mundane tasks. This is what happens when you stop being kind to everyone and start being strategic with your kindness. You don't become a cruel person. You become a powerful person. You don't lose relationships, you improve them. You don't have less impact, you have more impact in the areas that matter. The people who deserve your kindness, your family, your true friends, your mentors, your team members, they get the best version of you. They get your full attention, your creative energy, your genuine care. They get someone who chose to be there, not someone who felt obligated to be there. When you're selective with your kindness, it becomes more meaningful. When your teenage son asks for help with homework, you're fully present because you protected that time. When your mentor needs assistance with a project, you can give your best effort because you're not exhausted from helping everyone else. When your team faces a challenge, you can lead with clarity because you haven't scattered your focus across a dozen unimportant requests. This is leadership. This is impact. This is how you create a life that matters. Your kindness should be like a spotlight, not a floodlight. A floodlight illuminates everything weakly. A spotlight illuminates specific things powerfully. When you focus your kindness on the people and causes that align with your values, you create real change. When you spread it thin across everyone who asks, you create nothing of lasting value. But the compound effect of this transformation is extraordinary. As you become more selective, you attract higher quality relationships. As you protect your time, you achieve bigger goals. As you focus your energy, you develop expertise that makes you irreplaceable. As you raise your standards, people raise their treatment of you. You'll start to notice that successful people gravitate toward you because you operate with the same principles they do. You'll find that opportunities come to you because you have the bandwidth to recognize and pursue them. You'll realize that your increased selectivity hasn't made you less kind, it's made your kindness more valuable. This is your moment of choice. You can continue living as you have, saying yes to everyone and achieving nothing of significance. You can keep being kind to people who don't deserve it while neglecting the people who do. You can maintain your reputation as someone who's always available while remaining unavailable to yourself. Or you can choose transformation. You can choose to be kind to the right people at the right time for the right reasons. You can choose to protect your time and energy so you can invest them in what truly matters. You can choose to build a life of purpose instead of a life of people pleasing. The choice is yours. The system is clear. The time is now. Stop being kind to everyone and start being powerful in your kindness. Your future self is waiting for you to make this decision. The people who truly matter in your life are waiting for you to show up fully. Your dreams are waiting for you to protect the time and energy they need to become reality. The transformation starts today. The question is, are you ready to begin?